All right, everybody. Are you guys ready for our final fuck up of the night? Are you guys excited? Amazing. Okay, so I'm really excited to introduce our final speaker of the night. His 3 fun facts. He once accidentally stole a car across 4 US states. Drake used to live in his building. Holy shit. And he has broken 2 world records. Very cool. Everybody, please help me welcome Darius.
How is it going? How nice was that stretch? That was great. First off, I want to say how amazing it is to have an event where we can talk about our fuck-ups, about those moments when we're falling flat on our face. It's amazing. So when I was thinking about preparing this talk, I realized that all my current friends right now really have no idea about the story I'm going to tell you guys. And it's because most of them know me as a photographer, as a podcaster, as a writer, as an artist, but tech entrepreneur, they had no clue. And the truth was, that was very intentional. It was a part of my life that I was hiding. And when I started working on this talk, I realized I was hiding it because I had lots of resentment and guilt and some shame about some of the decisions that I had made, and mostly about how it all came to an end. I remember when it first started, it was a startup idea called @MyU. And basically, it was like Facebook before Facebook. And somehow, we had convinced Ryerson, University of Toronto, and York to have a meeting with us to talk about this idea. And so we found the only human we know in the whole world to help build this website. And that summer, he had some sort of breakdown, went missing, no deliverable, so that whole meeting went to shit. Yeah, it's pretty sad. But from that fuck up, we came up with our first real startup idea. It was called Apollo Media, and basically, it was a web development company. We had struggled so hard to figure out an agency that can help us, a guy that can help us, and we said, what the hell? Why don't we do this ourselves? Never made a website before, never designed a website before, never developed a website before, don't even have a website. We'd be perfect for this, right? Yeah. So, every day, we got dressed up like these guys, because that's what business people do, and we went into my mother's basement and worked for like 10 hours. I have no idea what we were doing because we didn't know what we were doing, but we were hustling. And so, finally, we landed our first client. It was my mom. She said yes. And then our second client, my aunt. And so we made the world's ugliest websites. So bad, seriously, they were atrocious. But somehow, they generated money. They made money. And so we kept making websites. And that became our tagline, Apollo Media, websites that make money. And that first year, our first clients generated over $1 million of revenue. Yeah, crazy, right? So as they grew, we grew. And so we moved from that basement to a King Street West office not too far from here. And our team grew to about 10 people. And it was exciting. We started working with ad agencies and bigger clients, and things were great until we fucked up. And our fuck up is the most basic fuck up you can have. We started comparing ourselves. Instead of staying in our lanes and doing what was working, we had to see what these guys were doing and what those guys were doing and why were they moving so fast and we were moving so slow. And so who did we compare? We went against Facebook, right? Because Facebook at the time, it seemed like they went from 0 to $1 billion in 6 months. So the most dangerous, most toxic idea seeped into our consciousness. The idea was that we were going to be the next billion-dollar idea in the next 6 months. And that makes you a terrible manager because you become reckless. Because you're like, yo, just around the corner, we can spend this money. We're about to break out. And so we started a second startup, and it was a social network. And we got a $100,000 loan to run this startup. The startup's name was Daily Challenge, and the concept was really sweet. It was a social network for socially conscious people. And the core concept was every day we were going to send our members a single act of kindness. And they can go out into the world and do this simple act. And if millions of people did these things, we'd make a big impact, right? Simple, like go pick up 3 pieces of trash or hold the door open for the person behind you. Or, like call your mom and tell her you love her. Yeah. And there was no business model, no revenue model. But we were convinced it didn't matter. We were going to blow up millions of users just around the corner, the next billion-dollar thing. And the truth was we had some success. Our biggest event, maybe you heard of, it was called Pay It Backward Day. We took our most popular challenge from the website, which was buy the person behind you a coffee, and we convinced 20,200 people in a single day to buy a stranger a coffee or a tea. Every time they did, and every single Second Cup in Ontario, Second Cup would donate to Sick Kids Foundation. Pretty cool, right? Raised $15,000 in a day, 12.9 unpaid media impressions, whatever that means. And we built lots of awareness, and it was great. But it wasn't Facebook great. It wasn't billion-dollar great. So we continued being reckless. And we poured every last bit of money into developing this as quickly as possible. And then when that ran out, we poured every piece of money and every resource we had from the successful startup into this. Because there's $1 billion around the corner. We got to do it. And so when we ran out of money, and we had stopped paying ourselves as the founders for several months, we knew we were in trouble. And when it came to it, that we had to stop, we didn't have money for our staff or the rent, we had to pull people in and have a really tough conversation. And that was a dark time, very dark time. That was a terrible day, and I remember it, telling people that the business is done. We can't pay them anymore, and they were super supportive because they were a family, and we were a family. And the business was gone, the team was gone. I eventually had to sell my condo. I had to sell my car. I lost my girlfriend and my dog. Yeah. But the toughest part, I think, for me was she took the dog. That wasn't the toughest part. The toughest part for me was I had to go back and move in with my mom again in that same basement at 26. We were in all these newspapers, and we were doing so well. And then all of a sudden, I'm moving back with my mom. Quit going out. I quit social media. I just thought I let the whole world down. But this is not a sad story. You see, when we laid everyone off, our creative director, he asked, hey, is it okay if I sublet just a desk in the back? Is that cool? Cool, yeah, no problem, sure. So we did. And from that back desk, him and his business partner started their own web development agency. And they hustled. And they did everything that we didn't do. They focused. And eventually they would build that web development agency to one of the most reputable, most respected, most talented in the entire country. So much so that Shopify would fly out from Ottawa to Toronto to make them an offer to buy their entire agency. 25 people. Now, I'm not sure if it was $1 billion offer, but I have a hunch that they were happy with the final numbers. Some of you might know our former creative director. His name's Vern Ho, and his business partner was Satish Kanwar. And they became some of the most instrumental, important people in the creation of this space, this office. and the Shopify brand. And seeing them do what we couldn't do was both humbling and inspiring. Because in that, I learned, if you're gonna play ball, you're gonna play professionally, it's 4 quarters, plus maybe overtime. You can't win if you don't finish the game. I also learned a really important lesson that if you're gonna spend all that time and energy, you better make sure it's the right dream you're chasing. To be a tech entrepreneur, to be a CEO, to be a billionaire was never my dream. That's the truth. But I never checked in to ask if that's what I wanted. So, through all this, I was able to decipher a very simple rule for myself that helped me in every decision and every dream that I would chase moving forward. And the decision was this. It was called the 5-year rule. It's really simple, super simple. I decided then and there that if I was gonna chase a dream, I needed to answer 2 questions. Question number 1 was, am I gonna finish this game? Am I gonna commit 5 years of my life to chasing this particular dream? And 2, if at the end of that 5 years, I had a blast, and the only thing I could proudly say was I was really good at that craft, at that business, would that be good enough for me? Not the greatest in the world, not the best there ever was, not $1 billion, just really good. The answer to those 2 questions were an indicator for me of true curiosity and passion. I was chasing the right dream. So, in closing, it's my experience that life is way too short and way too awesome to chase other people's dreams. So, if you're currently climbing some sort of mountain, maybe make sure it's the right one. Thank you.
Wow. I think I have goosebumps from that story. That was very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's not a story that you've shared before, so
Never shared it, really.
so thank you for opening yourself up like this to our community, and I'm sure it resonated with a lot of people in the room here tonight. So let's open it up to for some questions for Darius. Who wants to kick it off?
Hey, thanks for sharing that. That was really awesome. You have a really good voice, by the way. I wasn't expecting that when you came on the mic.
What were you expecting?
I don't know.
That was my talk voice.
Okay, so besides having like the most touching story ever, what were those 2 world records you broke?
Okay, so in April, when we first did the first Pay It Backward Day, we broke the world record. The current world record was like 289 people consecutively buying the person behind them a coffee. And then we shattered it by 612. So 612 people just kept paying it backwards. That was cool. And then the second record was we shattered that again when we did it across Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah, very touching story, actually. You see a bit of you and me, which is great. The tech startup and everything. My question is, what is your biggest regret out of everything you've done so far? Aside from that story, obviously. Aside from that. And what is I know you gave us a few life lessons, but what is your next biggest dream after this? What is your next goal?
Damn, those are 2 whoppers.
Yeah.
My biggest regret. So someone asked me this once. Well, I ask people. Sometimes I do these weird experiments. I sent like 10 people an experiment. I said, if you could send 14-year-old you one tweet, 140 characters, and give them one piece of advice, what would you say? And it was really cool because all the guys were like, yo, buy this stock and invest in this thing. And all the women were like, don't date him. And so, and then only one person asked me the question in return. And I'm like, oh, shit. And then I was like, I thought about it. I'm like, I think I'd tell 14-year-old me, art matters. Go to film school. And I was like, yeah, it's funny. That's a joke. Yeah. And then she's like, so why don't you do it? I'm like, I'm 30 years old. And then it just sunk in. So it was a regret. It was a deep regret that I never grew up in a world where art was a thing. And so it sunk in to my consciousness. And then the next thing I knew, I had applied. And then I got a scholarship. And then I moved to Vancouver. And then I changed my entire life. So it was a regret that I didn't know about. And then I did something about it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what do I want to do now? I want to show people the tremendous power they have inside. And very specifically, I do a very unique form of photography that I won't get into right here, but it's all about showing people their power, capturing it so they could see it. And I want to help them live freer, fuller, and more profitable lives by using that power. Yeah. Through seeing themselves, really, really seeing themselves and feeling themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, so, sorry, yeah, okay. So on a light note, how do you feel about being a Toronto photographer with a toque on his head right now, given the memes that are currently going around? Have you seen those?
No.
Okay, all right, I'll show you later. But I wanted to find out, so after the thing with your business, how did you go from your business to where you are now? I didn't quite catch the journey.
Yeah,
and also,
yeah.
like, what is your podcast about?
Cool. So it was a journey full of clusterfucks and fuck ups. When you get wounded that bad, it's very confusing. And when you get wounded that bad and you're not willing to deal with the wound, you're just hiding and pretending it's not there, it's a giant clusterfuck. I feel like I'm off brand by saying clusterfuck. It's a giant fuck up. So I bounced from places to places, and I just kept playing the first quarter of the basketball game and then saying, oh, it didn't work, I'm gonna quit. So I went to FreshBooks, I did advertising, I did just a bunch of different stuff, and I was miserable, and I had no idea who I was until film school. And until I fell in love with cinematography, and then that led to photography. In your second question, podcast. The podcast is, it's the intersection of creativity and existence. So artists, innovators, shit disturbers. We had dominatrix on the other day, and it's just like diving into their creative backgrounds and their histories, and then asking them about why are we here? Why do we create things? Like, is there a spiritual connection to expression and creation? And we also talk about their fuck ups and their messes, because I love that shit.
The mic right here. Darius, earlier in your talk, you talked about the point when your web development company was actually doing really well, but you got, I guess, distracted looking at, well, how else can we grow this, or what are our competitors doing? I want to ask you, how do you find the right balance between, looking ahead and dreaming and growing your business, if it's going well, versus being complacent?
Great question. For me, the truth is, I seek out failure. It's a part of my process. When things are going too well during a shoot, I'll say, like, we gotta fuck something up. Let's do something crazy. So I'll always try to break things and do things, because sometimes the coolest things are mistakes. And I think that's why I love the medium of photography, because with film, you need like 30 people on set, and you need like all these permits and stuff to fuck up. With photography, it's so easy to make mistakes and be like, damn, I would have never got there before. So my most popular photos, like on Unsplash, they've got millions of views. They're complete fuck-ups that I was like literally on the chair taking a picture of my monitor. That's how fucking crazy it was. and I did this slow shutter, and I spun on my chair like this, and the picture is the most epic thing you've ever seen. It was an absolute fuck up. Yeah, so I embrace it. I seek it out.
Okay, I think that's the perfect question to end on. So, okay. Okay, we'll do
Sorry,
the
I
last
have the
one.
I'm assuming that company was Jet Cooper.
Yes.
How hard was it to watch Jet Cooper kind of grow, especially in your former office, and sit there and see that?
So the truth was, it wasn't hard at all. And it's not because I'm a perfect human. Like, I get jealous all the time. But you know how sometimes people fall into, like, family? And you're just like, it's vicarious. So when they're succeeding, you're like, yeah, I'm succeeding too. And they were the most amazing humans. And they still are. I talked to them both today, actually. And so nobody deserves success more than those guys. They were this perfect mixture of hard work and talent, but also like just the most insane integrity you've ever seen. So it was like, I was just a fan from the jump.
Cool. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for sharing your story. That was incredible. All right, everyone.